Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how I would use samples to augment and reinforce some of our drum sounds. In an ideal world it'd be nice to get away with never using any drum samples, but part of the modern day recording is that we have this technology available to get the most for and what's best ultimately for the song. So I like to use drum samples in a way where we can reinforce the sounds that are already there and try and make the best of what we've got. Okay, so in the last video we were looking at some editing. In this one I'm going to go over some of the mixing practices that I've done on the drums. So I'll just quickly play you where we left off. So this was our raw drum sound, if you like, after recording. Which isn't bad. It's, you know, as I say, that is as we recorded originally. And then we come to this. This is our mixed drum sound. So it's a lot more crisp, quite a nice snappy sound, which is great for this style of music. Okay, so I'll just go over a few things that we've done now. There is a couple of samples added in with some of this, purely because recording these days, obviously it's great to be in a real nice studio with a great sounding live room, great mic preamps, great EQs, compressors, and recording with all that equipment on the way into Pro Tools, but it's not always a practical option for everyone else. So for us, recording in a fairly small sort of office space, you know, using an all digital format, we've used some effects on the way in to give us a similar kind of sound in some aspects, but samples will really help transform any home or project studio recording. It will step it up a level to make it sound that little bit more professional. So it's something I'm quite a fan of doing. I tend to just do it on the kick and snare, but sometimes in this case I found that the toms benefited from it as well. So what I'll talk about in this video more than anything is the samples, and then in the next video I'll go into more of the general EQ that we've got going on. So on the kick drum, this is our raw kick with some processing on. As I say, the next video will go into what I'm doing on these two. So it's not a bad sound, it's all there, but once we have the sample, it really helps cut through. So I'll just play the sample on its own. So it's quite a tight, it's got a little bit of roominess to it, and that really does help with that bass drum. So again, without the sample, and then with. And it's a similar kind of thing for the snare. So the snare, that's our raw snare top and bottom mic. I've got a noise gate going on, which I'll explain later. But again, so that on its own sounds okay. Adding the sample in with it, it's got a lot of punch, a lot of crack, and again a little bit more roominess to that as well. So the sample on its own sounds like this. And then back blended with the snare. So I play that with all the drums again. And if I just mute these samples on the kick and snare so you don't hear those at all, you'll see what I mean. So if we mute those now. So that's with no kick and snare sample. And then we'll put them back in. It really helps reinforce the overall drum sound. Now, it can be very easy to completely replace a kick drum sound or a snare sound. but I like to use them blended in with the originals, because the originals will always have that human feel element to them that sometimes you don't get with a sample. But by adding these in, it just helps push that over the edge. For me personally, I think it helps create a more professional overall sound. We have got some going on the toms as well, and where we're actually blending these sounds. So if I just play you this section here, a little bit further back. So we've kind of got like a 70-30 blend on there, so 70% sample sound with 30% of the original sound. And again, it's just helping create a nice overall fatter tom sound, which does ultimately cut through the mix a lot more on these. So the whole, which ultimately does cut through a mix a lot more for this style of music. So the whole thing again. That's working quite well. When we bring that in with the guide instruments, obviously these will get re-recorded at some point, but just for a little bit of context. It's starting to slowly sound like a more complete sort of song idea now. Okay, so in the next video I'll talk a little bit more about some of the EQ and dynamic processing that we've got going on, but this one is mainly focused on samples to give you an idea of how I like to use those.